Hello everybody. Nice to see you. Welcome to the second part of the Drought learning series. I'm very happy to have everybody here. There will be other people trickling in still, I assume, but I would like to give it a start already. What do we have today? Oops. So first of all, big welcome from our side. So my name is Karen Dahl. I'm working for the German Red Cross, and together with Dorothy Heinrich and Kiswende Gigma, we compiled this Drought learning series to learn about how do we conceptualize, how did we work on drought so far in the Red Cross and Red Crescent movement. And last week we already started off with a session that we called a bit of a big picture session. So how do we conceptualize drought? How is drought a humanitarian issue? And what is the role of the Red Cross and Red Crescent movement within this big question of addressing drought? So what is on in general?
Come here.
Oh,
Sorry, that was me talking to my dog. I'll pop myself on mute.
That is totally fine. Thank you. So what is on the agenda? So we will have every second week, we will have a session like this one today, where we will zoom into one specific aspect of drought. And you can already now register also for the sessions 3 to 8. So this is also already available, and we will share the link in the chat. And if you have any questions or feedback, please let us know. For today, after we had this more big picture session 2 weeks ago, for today we want to talk a little bit about drought risk and understanding drought as a hazard and its impact. So the rationale behind this of talking about impacts in such detail, so starting really with, okay, what do we see when we're talking about drought and drought impacts, is that it's very important for us in the process of developing an early action protocol to define it very well at the very beginning, right? What is the impact that we are trying to address, because and what are the lead times that we need for this, and because that will, in the end of the day, also affect our trigger mechanism, right? So depending on what impact we are looking at, we need to think about how much lead time do we have, what is the right parameter to choose, and also, of course, then the actions depend on this. So this is why we want to zoom in we want to zoom in this specific aspect of drought. And in this session, we want to conceptualize a bit better what we really mean when we are talking about drought, and how to choose the right forecast for this, how to target then those that are mostly affected. And for that, of course, we need to understand the impact. So distinguishing a bit, okay, what is actually the hazard and what is the impact, and when is the impact and when is the hazard, and how do the two belong together? So that's what we're going to do today. And with this, I would briefly hand over to my colleague, Dorothy.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you all in so many big numbers. 35 people is actually quite nice. And we have people trickling in as well. So it's really nice to see some familiar names and some new ones as well. Just a bit of housekeeping that Karen asked me to do. So the sessions are going to be about an hour each. I'm going to try to stick to time, but we do have an informal chat at the end that kind of lasts for an extra half hour. So please do join. We're kind of keen to keep these conversations going. We know that an hour is not very long. So if you do have time in your day and you'd like to grab a coffee and come join us, please do. Please do make use of the Zoom chat liberally. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you think. So please do keep adding to those. I'm going to put as well a link to a Slido where you can put out your questions. We're compiling them for future reference. So please do, in terms of questions for the panelists, the presenters, we'll send around the Slido link as well. There's translation. Il y a des traductions if anyone's interested. Sorry, my Spanish isn't good enough to say this in Spanish. But the interpreters are there at the bottom of your screen. And we are taking collaborative notes, so we'll share those links as well. I think that's it, Karen. Thank you so much. Enjoy the session, everyone.
Thank you so much, Dorothy. All right, then I would like to do a bit of a warm up with you. And for that, just give me a second. I need to get out of this. For that, I would like to invite you all to a Mentimeter so that we can, let me just share that in the chat. Here we go. So you can all let me know if you have difficulties accessing the Menti. And I will also share my screen again. Where am I? Here am I. Right. Okay, so yeah, last week we talked a lot about we tried to start addressing drought as a humanitarian issue, and we tried to understand better, okay, what is it actually that we mean when we talk about drought? And we saw many difficulties already when we're talking about other factors that contribute to drought impacts, or like when we talk about, for example, food security. So what do we mean by drought? And for this, I wanted to ask you, first of all, the question whether, have you been here before in this session? So this in this drought series session, have you already attended last time? Are you here the first time? Who is in the room? So I see we have some newbies as well. We have some people who have attended the first session. That is wonderful. Okay, there's actually more new people that are here the first time. Okay, I'll give it a bit more time. Yeah, okay. Okay, I see there's many new people in the room as well. Great, that's good to see. Then I would like to ask you, well, when you think about drought, what do you mainly mean? Because that's something we touched upon last week already. Are you thinking, I mean, and that's really out of like just spontaneously, when you think about drought, you mainly mean the meteorological drought. So you're talking about less rain. You're talking about hydrological drought. So you're talking about like water scarcity. You're talking about agricultural drought. So you mean mainly crop losses, for example, or we are talking about socioeconomic drought. So food insecurity, or maybe something else even. Let us know. Okay, so we're seeing a lot of meteorological drought votes here. Okay. Okay. So wait, I think it's quite an equilibrium between meteorological drought and agricultural drought. Okay. Thank you. I think that's very interesting already about like how we conceptualize drought, because now in the next question, I would like to know from you, when you talk about drought impacts in your context that you work in, or that in either the country that you live in or the country where you work in, or where, like, what is your context, both work-wise and also life-wise in general? What are the main impacts when you're talking about drought? So it can be impacts on crops, impacts on pasture conditions and maybe livestock, impacts on wash, maybe also impacts on food security or malnutrition or others. Those that put in others, I'm very keen in hearing what the other is as well. Although we will have also in the discussion afterwards, we will also have time to go into that a bit more. Okay. All right. Okay. So that's already quite interesting, right? So what we see is that many people, when we talk about the impacts of drought, we are looking mainly at food security and malnutrition. Whereas when we think about drought as a hazard, as we did in the slide before, we see that we conceptualize drought a lot also as a meteorological phenomenon. Okay, that is great. Thank you. And we will stop here. And now I would like to invite our dear speakers for this session. So we will have two speakers today. So we will have Abraham Tesfaye from the Ethiopian Red Cross, who has been working on the Drought EAP in Ethiopia. So, and he will be sharing his experiences with the challenges on how to conceptualize drought, how they started, which impact they prioritized in the end. And then we will have also Mojaki Rebohongile. Sorry, I think I mispronounced that. And she is working at the National University of Lesotho, and the National University of Lesotho supported the Lesotho Red Cross in conceptualizing their drought EAP and supporting them with the data collection. So we will hear from both of them how they approached drought and drought impacts. And Abraham, the floor is yours to start.
Thank you. Can you see the slide?
Yes, not yet in full screen. If you can still put it in full screen.
What about now?
Not yet. Not yet. If it's not working, then I think we could also do like that. I think it's. Now it's working. Great. Yeah.
Okay. My name is Abraham. I'm working in Ethiopian Red Cross. I am coordinating in the last 4 years innovative approach to response preparedness. It's a forecast-based financing project. It's focused on system development and also in the development of early action protocol for drought and flood. And I will just my presentation will be focused on. I will just give you a few overview on the project and the drought situation, the context, and also how the prioritized impacts, early action selection, and in the process of the triggered up to trigger development. And I will give you the EAP content, context, and also few words on system development and our current status, just to give you. We have done the risk mapping. As we can see, in Ethiopian context, 75% of historical humanitarian crises is due to flood and drought is the major crisis, cause of crisis, especially with related to natural disasters. So we have gone through the vulnerability indicators, also children under 5, uprooted people, shelter, and all this has been just identified. And also major exposed elements also has been identified, and we go through this mapping at the beginning. When we look at, just to give you quickly the overview of the project, our goal was to set an early warning, early action system in place. Targeting the system can be just used in the country, and the approach was just a national approach. We don't have specific place just to target, but the whole country will be targeted, and the system is expected just to forecast or just to indicate which area just to be affected. So at the beginning, the team involved throughout the process, National Technical Working Group established, In this group, Ministry of Agriculture was part of it, Ethiopian Disaster Risk Management Commission, Ministry of Water and Energy, Ministry of Health, World Food Program, as they have also initiatives just to join in the activation and also in the system development, UN OCHA, and also Netherlands 510 Global Data Team involved in the main system development. They have been just assisting technically. The basic pillars was we have a forecast-based financing that is part of the system development. The data preparedness part has also its own expertise and also cash transfer program just to finance the activation and just to take quick measures during just activation. Finally, we engage in drought early action protocol development. When we look at the context of why we have just selected the drought as an hazard, we can see I cut from 1972, but if I go beyond that, many years back, we can just observe the trend of the country has been just active, just being affected by a drought. In 1972-73, it was a very severe drought situation, and a total of around 4.3 million people has been just affected. Around 200,000 people died because of the drought. So this trend, after 10 years, the return period at that time was close to 10 days return period. After 10 years, I mean, as a return period, again, 8 million people have been affected and 1 million, close to 1 million died. This is also the major and very, very severe, considered severe drought for the country. So 1 year extended and around 250 people, additional days also at that time just recorded. So after that, the return period becoming just reduced, the return period becoming after 1984, 1999, 2000. After that, it is also still, it was 10 years. After that, it is reduced up to even after 5 years, it was just occurring. Currently, every almost 2 up to 3 years, the country has been just affected by the drought. So we can see the trend, how drought has been affected. Currently, this year, the country has been just severely affected by drought. So we can see from the data, almost all, majority of the regions of the country affected by this drought. We can see in this year, 11,026,738 people have been affected directly by drought. So recently, in one zone, not a region, but in one zone in Borana, only Borana zone, 3.3 million cattle has been dead. So, and this, because of this drought, this is very severe. Now the major concern of the country, and everybody is just running just to save the life of those people. So, and also I tried just to differentiate the non-drought and also drought for security situations. But the drought is currently, in addition to the drought aggravated food security problems, now the number of people now increasing to 20 million people are just food insecure. So drought is now the major hazard, can be just considered a major hazard. And also when we see the coverage area, drought prone areas now can be just considered. Drought hazard frequency, we can see 1 up to 3 is this the yellow part of the country. At least 1 up to 3 times has been just affected, and the black ones are 10 up to 16 times has been just affected in the last year. So 1991 up to 2009. So that's why we have selected drought as the major hazard to be just considered for our focusing area, just for system development as part of our work, the project major hazard selected by technical working group. So during this period, all technical working group member organizations, we had monthly meeting, and also all expertise engaged separately also in the process of historical hazards, how historically drought has been just frequently affecting the country. So based on that, we prioritized drought as a major hazard of our country. And in the process, we have just prioritized the impact based on considering historical impact data. We tried just to look at in the last 25 up to 30 years historical impact data. We have got it from EDRMC and also UN OCHA and even World Food Program. We have just collected and analyzed, and we came based on the magnitude and also the type. So the drought impact, 3 major impact areas has been just prioritized for activation. So just to be considered during activation. Drought impact on water related issue, and also has, as a result of that, is one major prioritized area. Impact on crops, it is obvious. It is part of the main cause of food insecurity in the country, is one of the drought. And impact on animal health and also animals' productivity and production, also part of it. So those impacts can affect the life of people and can affect the health of the people, and also their cattle. So and also their livelihoods are rated based on those impacts considered. Early action, we have also discussed how to just tackle those impacts, or just to reduce or prevent those impacts. So we have selected early action selection criteria we have developed based on evidence, the data, the impact data, and also capacity, and the capacity and previous experience of the National Society to the Red Cross, and also sectoral offices. Alignment of early actions with ERC's mandates, EDRMC strategy, Ethiopian Disaster Risk Management Commission, national policies, and including sphere standards. Which actions can be just taken? We have considered this criteria. Relevance of the actions to be benefits, and the feasibility of the duration to implement these actions within lead time. How can those actions can be done? So based on this, we have based on the consultation with technical working group, the following major generalized areas, early actions were selected. The first one is pre-seasonal preparatory activities. We can say these are readiness activities and also prepositions. All these are considered pre-seasonal preparatory activities. And interseasonal activities, the second trigger will be interseasonal activities after 1 month of the lead time. So interseasonal activities has been just identified, and late seasonal activities or early response activities has been also considered. Early response after the symptoms and also observe it, can consider those activities as an action for each. So these actions are, just to show you, these actions are has been just allocated for each impact. So we tried just to connect when we look at the trigger development. In Ethiopia, there is a spatial variation in climatology, and also the rainfall season varies geographically. So we have lowlands, and we have Meher harvesting, and also Meher rainy season we have, and we call it Krampt. June, July, August is a Krampt one, and also the harvest. The harvest season also differs accordingly. So we have connected those rainy seasons with the harvesting one. So we have developed this seasonal calendar for the harvest seasonal calendar. We are just included. So we have Meher harvest season, November, December, and January. Especially Western agricultural areas, and also we have so the Meher harvesting is here also May, June, July, up to then also the planting season and Krampt rain. So in this calendar, we tried just to look at after planting how the plants will be just mature and also can be just harvested based on the required amount of rain, because most of our agriculture depends on rain. So based on this calendar, we tried just to look at how we can just to intervene, where we can just intervene, can be just done, and that's what. So bulk receiving areas also identified. Northern pastoral areas also has their own by their own language in Somali, and also there is Karan, Kamara, July, August, and September rainy seasons. Also, we can see Dairi in Somali, November, December, January, including all these areas. Southern pastoralists, northern pastoral, and also bulk receiving areas, and also western agricultural areas also being identified, and harvesting and rainy season are connected in this calendar. In the trigger development, we have trigger statements for more than 50% of geographical areas of a zone is predicted to be drier than a normal condition. We consider the first trigger just to go and to act activities which are not that much worthy activities. We can just aware communities and those preparations, all those activities need just to be done, and these conditions can be 40 to 45% probability of below normal rain are considered. On 1 month lead time, this European Center medium weather forecast, seasonal rainfall forecast. So we have just used that. During this time, we have just done the forecast scale assessment, and we have been just selecting those forecast models just for this based on that. So, and for normal, that's why we make 40 to 45, this lowlands, most of the lowlands is so difficult because of the variability of their weather conditions. We consider 40 up to 45% probability just to act, not to act in vain, so just to reduce that. So 45% below normal probability for the most variable season October, November, December, and March, April, May, whereas 40% probability for better predictable for our current June, July, August. It is known and easy just to, the variability is not that much, so we give it, if there is 40% probability of below normal, we can just act as the first trigger. So in the second trigger, just to act for worthy activities, this is also used as a stopping mechanism, or because if the first trigger, after the first trigger, if we more than 50%, the second early action will be triggered if the crop yield reduction is predicted to be more than 50% of the area after 1 month. After 1 month of the season, the first trigger will be done before the season. So this one is after the 1 month of the season, since the start of the season based on LEAP index, livelihood early assessment and protection index. We use that can be just some observations can be done, and using LEAP because LEAP has been used for considering the yield and also the production reduction forecast has been used, and just to support safety net program by World Food Program. It is common in Ethiopia, and it has been a good index just to be used. So we used, and also these worthy activities, such as cash and so many early actions will be done based on the index. We will just go to the second trigger. So this is the same thing as I told you, the seasonal, the calendar. When we look at theory of change, we have targeted, we have sectors, livelihoods in the EAP, WASH and risk reduction, climate and adaptation and recovery activity sectors. So 10,000 people will be targeted based on, we have just targeted this target based on the allocated budget by the IFRC to the National Society. So based on the budget, we have just targeted which areas and also the coverage area of the actions will be depend on the available resources. So we have indicators and also early actions. For example, in livelihoods, we have readiness, pre-positioning activities, and also major on the second trigger, early action activities. And also in the WASH also, we have readiness activities, pre-positions activities, and also early action activities. Risk reduction and climate adaptation and recovery areas, readiness activity, pre-positions activity, and early actions activities has been just part of the EAP. So this is the TOC is the detailed one. It is summarized for this presentation purpose.
We've got 3 more minutes.
Okay, I have already finished. Finally, we went to the development of IBF system, impact-based forecasting system. It is automated system, and it can just predict and also forecast and indicate areas to be affected, and also the impact level also clearly identified, and also automated system can be just indicate to concerned decision makers who are just their addresses uploaded in the system will get the system will be can just forecast and also indicate areas with maps and also numbers and data, including the impact level as this system. This system has been already completed and in the handover process to the government with the presence of even ministers and also higher level officials. So the drought EAP development started from selection of hazard, national working establishment and risk detail, risk analysis, prioritization of impact, prioritization of forecast based on skill assessment, so skill evaluation, the trigger developments, all the threshold, and also the lead time, all things are being included in the EAP. Finally, activation and deactivation procedure and roles and responsibility of each actor is included in our early action protocol. So this is finally we went to first activation in Oromia region based on the system give us this map and these areas just to be affected, and based on that, based on the available resources, we went there and activate. We make the activation. We made area closure, roof water harvesting, and community awareness, promotion of avoiding food wastage, promotion of water reservation, support water harvesting, 6 schools, and also roof water harvesting has been done, area closure, and also cash for fodder for 1,004 households has been done. And we have just we made one activation. So the system is in place and now in the process of handovering. We had a big conference of showing the system to the donors and also government officials. And now in this process, we have confronted such challenges. Nature of the project by itself is new and new initiative. And it was one of the challenge, limitation of data adequacy and quality, also stakeholders commitment and ARCS branches and local government capacity, and also related challenges we had. Over to you. I have just finished my presentation.
Thank you so much, Abraham. I think that was, really great to hear the whole process of an EAP development and really zoom into where you started, how you selected the impacts, but also talk about the trigger, because as we have seen, I mean, obviously that's very interrelated. So thanks so much. There are some questions in the Slido, but I would like to keep them for later so that we hear Mojaki from Lesotho first, and then we can together tackle all the questions that are in the Slido. So if you want to stay here, that would be amazing. And with no further ado, I would also then like to hand over to Mojaki and give her the floor to present the experiences from Lesotho in the next 10 to 15 minutes. Abraham, I think you need to stop sharing. Yeah, exactly. Perfect. You're still on mute, Mojaki, but we can see your slides.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
You all hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, that's nice. Oh, okay, good. I'm Lebihile Mojaki. I work for the National University of Lesotho, as has been introduced, but I'm also a member of Academic Alliance on Anticipatory Action, which we oftentimes refer to as straight A's or 4 A's. So I'm here to give a presentation on the conceptualization of drought, the case of Lesotho. So the presentation overview is as follows. We'll have a background information, we'll have the methods, that is the framework of how we approached the study, we'll have the findings and discussion, conclusion, as well as the learnings. I mean, by way of introduction, it is really very difficult to come up with a universally accepted definition of drought. But there are many of us that are defining drought differently. They talk about a deficit of water over a prolonged period of time, over an extended period of time. Others talk about a decrease of the average water availability and the deficiency as well. However, when you look at these definitions, the key thing here is that there's a deficit of water over a spatial area and again over a certain a period of time that can be considered as a long period compared to the norm. So the impacts of drought here, looking back at the past 1 decade, Lesotho has experienced three events of drought in the years of 2011, 2012, 2015, 2016, and 2018, 2019, all of which have led to food security, water scarcity. There were also health impacts, especially malnutrition on children of under 5s, the animal diseases, and animal deaths. So of all the impacts that have been experienced in the country, when you look at this graph, you realize that the number of people that often need food during drought episodes increases each time a drought hits. Like for instance, if you look at 2012, the number rises very, very high. And again, in 2016, it goes even higher. And the 2018 and 2019 drought did not seem to be as bad as that of 2012 and that of 2016. However, the number of people is still very huge that were in need of food at the time. Here we are just trying to indicate the number of people who were severely food insecure during the 2018-2019 drought per district. And you will notice that the South and Lowlands, where Mafeteng, Mohalsuk, and Kuting, parts of Gachasnek are, seem to have the highest number of people that are affected by drought. And this is not surprising because they come from a livelihood zone that is prone to drought. So here we are presenting the population that was affected during the 2016 drought. We are looking at the integrated food insecurity phase classification. The results show that a number of people in percentages was very high during the 2016 drought, while those in phase 3, that is IPC under crisis, the numbers seem to be very high, and it was projected that these numbers would increase as the drought event continues. And that is compounded again by the results here showing us the number of people that were affected during the 2018-2019, especially those that are living in rural areas. Then the number is very high under IPC 3, and then those that now required an emergency assistance at that time. So against this backdrop of this effect, the study intended to assess the understanding of drought and drought risks, with the main view of ascertaining the nature of drought impacts, so as to build the early action protocol by Lesotho Red Cross Society. So specifically, the drought scoping study that was conducted intended to have an understanding of drought and its impacts, but also to analyze the coping strategies that different people have adopted during drought episodes. Here is the study area. We see the Mafeteng here being represented by Kribing Council. We also have the northern part of Lesotho, Leribe, represented by Mposong, and we have the central part of the country, Tabatseka, represented by Dinakeng. So the study adopted a qualitative design, and that was because we wanted to capture the lived experience of the people when we talk about a drought and its impacts on their lives and livelihoods. And hence the study used 3 consecutive tracks that were also iterative, each of which its findings inform the track that follows. Now, the first track was data scrambling, and this is where literature was reviewed from different reports that talk about drought. So those that were on hard copy materials and online data sources were being reviewed to get such information of the data sources about drought and the type of data that they host in the institutions. The second track was that of the action research, which was which adopted a 2-tier approach, where we first consulted the communities, and then the second one, we consulted the stakeholders at the district level. So the major questions, therefore, that were discussed was how people really understand drought and the impacts of drought that they experience. So the use of a focus group discussion was very key in this action research, as well as the key informants interviews. So with track 3, this is where we develop the drought EAP scenarios, but I'm not going to go deep into this because this is a series of drought talks. So there will be a presentation that goes into detail about EAP for drought. So this is just with an evidence that indeed focus group discussions were used to collect data in the villages. And I need to highlight here that the people in the focus group discussions were segregated by sex as well as their age, because we find that it is people become very free when they are in a group of the people of the same sex as well as the age mates. So what has been ascertained by this study is that there are several different institutions that have data relating to drought, and in the first cycle, that is the one in the center, the core ecosystem, we have Bureau of Statistics, which is an institution that holds the national data. We have also the Disaster Management Authority that provides data on vulnerability of the people, especially those in the rural communities. We have Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security that gives information about soil moisture, how crops are infected, and the likes. Again, we have Lesotho Meteorological Services, which is very one of the key institutions when we talk about drought here, because they give us meteorological data, and this is where they give us products like the daily focus. They also give us the weekly focus, the monthly, as well as the seasonal outlook. So in the extended ecosystem, that's where we consider the development partners, who also host data that is essential when we talk about drought. And in the external ecosystem here, we talk about the likes of FuseNet, that is essential in giving information that will lead to the declaration of certain disasters, drought in this particular presentation. So we also went on and discovered that there are different key livelihood activities that people adopt. We thought it is essential that we consider the key livelihood activities. This is because in order for us to have an understanding, a proper understanding of how drought affects their lives and livelihoods, we first need to understand their key livelihood activities. So the ones that came up were agriculture, daily wage employment, and petty trade. So how do people now conceptualize drought from the field? What do they say drought is? We found that oftentimes they conceptualize it in terms of the negative impacts that they feel on their lives as well as the livelihoods. So they talked about a shortage of water for domestic use, irrigation, and livestock use. They also talk about abnormally high temperatures that lead to range and crop desiccation that consequently leads to crop failure. They also talk about disease outbreak as well as animal mortality. So this, from various focus group discussion, was confirmed by the key informants that made a very clear connection between of the foregoing to the shortage of food as well as the acute hunger. So the communities could vividly, remember the drought episodes that they have experienced, as indicated, with the major impact being food insecurity. And when you look at this graph here, and you look at the drought years, the years in which a drought was experienced, you realize that a production seemed to be declining drastically in those years. So there is really a relationship between drought years and a decline in crop production as gathered from Bureau of Statistics. And they could tell that the groups of people that are affected are orphans and vulnerable children, the people living with a disability, as well as the farmers. Now, many of drought impacts was sought, and they gave out many impacts. And during the synthesis, then we came up with economic as well as agricultural impacts. And that was after applying a prioritization criteria, looking at the suffering that is caused to the populations, the overall economic impact, as well as stakeholder priorities. So the most impactful drought events then were those of agriculture and socio-economic in nature, and those were characterized by deterioration of the natural resource-based livelihoods, where now we see a decline in crop as well as animal productivity. There's a continuous failure of crops, high prices that should, and people could not afford food, but also a shortage of water as well. And on the issue of the shortage of water, they even indicated that sometimes there are inter-community conflicts, because now one community would come to a community where probably there's sources of water that still have water, and then there will be a fight now striking between the villages over scarce water resources. Now, in one of the focus,
two more minutes. Sorry.
Okay, now almost done.
Great.
Okay, so they highlighted that for a head of cabbage, really during the 2016-2015 drought, they bought one head of cabbage at 25 Rand, and that was too much money compared to the norm. So these graphs here just give a comparison that crop production declines when we don't have rainfall. So for instance, if you look at the 2016 there, you will realize that there was no rain, and you look at the rainfall variability graph, you will realize that there was no rain at the time. So they have adopted several different coping strategies, range from negative to positive, and they have highlighted some of the humanitarian support that is deemed necessary to support them during drought events, especially looking at the key livelihood activities that have been negatively impacted. So in conclusion, drought is a recurrent hazard and it causes serious damage, and it is conceptualized in Lesotho in terms of its negative impacts it causes. The most impactful drought events are agricultural and economic in nature, and humanitarian support is therefore needed in terms of early warning messages but also in strengthening the coping strategies that they adopt. The learnings from this study is that data sharing culture is very problematic in our context. The structures are also very bureaucratic, that if you need to get a certain data, there's that a long hierarchy that one needs to follow, and that delays access to data. The implementation of many tracks that are also repetitive took long. So the adoption of human-centered design was very, very useful, because now the impacts and the coping strategies were established from the people rather than what we think. Again, a focus group discussion turned out to be public gatherings. So people who intend to use focus group discussion as one of the methods in collecting that, you must make sure that the selection criteria is very clear, because when you get to the village, then you'll find 200 people, and how do you deal with that for a focus group discussion? So that is what we have learned with this. This marks the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Mojaki. Thanks for this other example of how you approached drought. Thanks a lot. I will take some time of the informal half-hour chat to allow some of the questions that we have in the Slido. And I would like to start with two questions that are a bit interrelated for Abraham. So there is one question in the Slido regarding the key knowledge and information gaps in the historical impact data analysis. So were there gaps, but what were the gaps? And did you use expert judgment to address this problem? That would be the first one. I think I leave it at that. So basically, how did you fill the data gaps on the historical impact?
The major gap is just to identify the frequency. You can find some data's quality issue. First, just to the gap, one is the quality gap, and also even data quantity in terms of, because we are just trying just to read the trends. Some years there was some impacts were not just recorded properly. So that was the main challenge. So we tried just to expand our data sources, because we were just focusing only just to get those impact data from Ethiopian Disaster Risk Management Commission. And the Commission data recording has stopped in 2012. So we wanted just to get those, the other data up after 2012. So we hired a consultant, and just we send him around and from regions, zones, and different offices just to collect the impact data set, just to update the recording. The first challenge was some gaps in recording in EDRMC, and also we have collected from World Food Program. They have also their own data, so they gave us some access. And also we received it from UN, OCHA, and other sources. We collected and we sit together and look at it, compare it with the from regional and zonal, from the data collected from regional and zonal branches. And based on that, we refer some secondary data, news and others done by the consultant, and also based on that we tried just to fill the gap. Still, the data quality is a challenge because some data's little bit just limited, are not just giving us full information. So because of that, just in the development of the information, still the data gap is still challenging in our country. But we tried just to use consultant, just hiring a consultant just to fill the gap, and also expanding our data sources from UN agencies and other open sources. We tried just to fill those gaps. That's what we did.
And can I ask a follow-up question on that? Was the data gap that you, I mean, because I assume that the data that was more or less like that was accessible was potentially data on how many people were affected by the drought. But what were the, like what data was particularly missing on the impact? I mean, because you said, I mean, you have the agricultural like the crop losses as one of the prioritized impacts, but you also had WASH as one of the impacts. And it would be interesting to know if, like, how difficult was it to gather those type of data with impacts with regard to WASH, for example?
Yeah, the first thing is the data are not just complete. They may lack locations, and also the number of people affected and cattle, and those basic data are required in our system development, especially particularly. So in the WASH, the location is very important, because which water pointers will be affected, and just to identify those areas, which water pointers, the locations are very important. So those limitations were the one special, particularly in our context in our system development. So that was the gap. In the WASH, the locations, which water pointers, the locations gap could not just give us which water pointers just to be targeted, because the system show us after we collected the data, we know where water pointers are clearly. So the impact data need just to give us historically which areas has been just affected. So just in the prioritization of drought-prone areas, we had some difficulties. So those are the challenges we have been just faced.
Thank you, Abraham. And Mojaki, you try to fill some of those data gaps with this focus group discussions, and also in the Slido we saw quite some interest in the focus group discussions, and there were questions regarding who were the different focus group, like the different groups in the focus group, and did you observe any key difference in the focus group discussions, for example, between men and women? So what in the end did the focus group discussion, like what insight did it give you in the different groups and how they were differently affected?
Okay, thank you. We had four different focus group categories. We had youth, we had middle-aged women, we had middle-aged men, and we had the elderly. So one would say that the majority of the people that are living, especially in the rural areas, are dependent on agriculture as a key livelihood activity. So most of them would say that agriculture is not doing well, and if it's not doing well, it means majority of us are suffering. But specifically, when I look into the different groups of the focus group discussions, youth would indicate that they do not have employment. The unemployment rate in the country is very high, and they are struggling to get employment and to make ends meet. The category also that was affected differently was that of the elderly. Not elderly per se, but the men and women who have not reached a pension age threshold. So they were saying that they were not able to get even some of the work for work. these activities that some institutions, be them from the government or non-governmental organizations, that are implementing, so that, you know, they are being provided some food handouts or cash transfers after doing the work, they don't qualify for such activities, and that's what make them even more vulnerable. But you look at the elderly group, the thing with them is that already they are getting old age pension. However, because of the reliance of the many people, therefore, in their household on this little money that they are getting, they also become a vulnerable group of people. I hope I have answered well.
Yes, thank you very much. I would just, again, as a follow-up question, how do you know if that is now reflected in a way also in the EAP? If like these differences that you described, if these people are specifically targeted, and if that changes something in the approach later on. I mean, because that was the first step, right? We identify the impact, and based on the impact that we identified, also on the different groups, we need to adjust both the actions, but maybe also the trigger time, and so on. And I would just be interested if you know how this now translate basically into the early actions.
Okay, in developing a EAP now, as it has been developed, it is important that these different groups were taken into consideration. But for now, I will not go deep into that, because a presentation in this series will come that talks about developing early actions and the people that were targeted, why those people, and so on. But all I know is that the early actions that were chosen were for specific groups of people, depending on how they were impacted by drought events.
Great, yeah, thank you. I think that just emphasizes again, you know, that we, at the beginning, we really want to understand what is the impact and who is really impacted, to not be maybe at the beginning not to be too specific, but to also really understand, okay, this is what we want to address. This is the humanitarian issue. This is the impact that we're trying to address with our protocol. Thank you. I would like to pass another question to Abraham. So there's another question of how you deal with food insecurity, because that is one of the prioritized impacts in your EAP that is not rainfall induced, because the trigger that is set is mainly rainfall, that looks at precipitation, right? And now, how do you deal with those food insecurity situations that are not rainfall induced, and what does that mean also in terms of expectation management with both communities, but also the government, for example, with who also validated the EAP?
From the beginning, our EAP it's focused on, because on the nature of the context, the Ethiopian drought situation. So there are conditions connected to insecurity as a cause for insecurity, non-drought related. So our program will clearly indicated we will focus on our hydrological with related to because there is no noise. So it is rain feed agriculture is the country's agriculture is almost rain feed agriculture, and the crop related impact system is rain fed, which is more vulnerable to climate variables and also with related to climate change. So particularly climate change is expected just to increase the frequency of extreme climate events such as drought. and extreme temperature, which are seriously, a hurdle for agricultural activities. Based on Ethiopian context, since most of the community rely on rain-fed agriculture and traditional livestock production, so we clearly indicate in the EAP our intervention just to be focused on with related to hydrological, rain-based drought with related to below normal rain related just drought. So the government agencies and also UN agencies all agreed on just to focus, because we have to just be focused on the end, or just to get those areas which need just to be which is going to just affected by extensive crop failures as a result of level of drop of the rain. So we agreed on that, because a number of programs just targeting related to food insecurity in the country, as safety net programs and others areas are clearly identified and has been just supported with these safety net programs by WOLF program and also by the government by itself. So we agreed just to focus only on this natural disaster, which is related to lack of just because of limited rain caused disasters. That's all we that is based on our agreement. So we target areas and also selection of targets on the selection of the community just to be benefited from our early action, because we are talking about early actions. It's not about response. We are been just focusing on early actions. So there is no any problem, because if there is affected people, we are not just considering that, because we are focusing on early actions before the occurrence of the disaster. So with related to, based on the forecast, we went and take early action on this area. That is our agreement with the government agencies. Over to you.
Thank you so much for this explanation. I think that is very helpful, given also the discussions we had last week of like how do we divide the, like when we are addressing food insecurity, how do we then link this only to the drought? But I think it's very nice how you explained it, that this is also an agreement with the government, that we know we can only do so much, and this is what we can forecast, as opposed to some other factors maybe. So thanks a lot. I would like to just have one last question here in this plenary before we can jointly discuss on other points in a more informal way. And that is the question of climate change, because you addressed it, Abraham, already. You showed it in your slides that, I mean, we see more and more frequent droughts now. How does that impact the EAP as well? And did you address that in one way or the other? And the same question for you, Mujaki. I mean, how do you, like, what did you see with regards to climate change and the impacts? And what is your guess how this can be best integrated? Maybe Mujaki first.
Can you please repeat the last part? You got cut. I don't know if it's my poor network. Can you please repeat that?
Sure. So I was just referring to like how you address climate change, because it was at least in the presentation of Abraham, it was very clear that climate change will be an issue. There will be more frequent droughts in Ethiopia, and how what you have seen in your data, and also how you would suggest to best address this in an EAP, because we will, the impacts will be potentially more and more frequent, and just to elaborate on how to address climate change in the next steps.
Okay. I think one is to know the stakeholders that are involved towards resolving the issue of or addressing climate change effects. So for as long as we are working in silos, each institution where it is based, and there is no proper coordination and collaboration, there's no way that we can address the effects of climate change. So the key is that let us coordinate together, because the data sharing of what is happening with regard to climate change in our country will be known, and each stakeholder then will be able to play their part. So I think the key here is to proper coordination structures be in place. But again, I think it is the issue of capacitating Lesotho meteorological services, so that through it, in collaboration with other stakeholders, we are able to know what these effects of climate change are. What do they mean to us? Because oftentimes we refer to the information from the region and elsewhere. We don't have what we are supposed to have from within our context. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mojaki. And Abraham, what is your take in how to address and integrate, climate change into the EEP?
Yeah, climate change, I think one of the EAP major focus areas is just mobilizing communities. The community are the center of who are just working by their own, just to in the prevention and also mitigation activities, because we are just to give you some example, the system just give us some alert in one of the districts was going to be just affected by the drought, and we went there and we tried just to aware the community, because we were just awareing the people. At that time it was raining, we couldn't just drive even, but we were just telling them that it's going to their area is going to be just affected by drought. So during that time, they agreed with us, and the local administration also agreed on that, and we were just working because the government also engaged in the process. So just to test also the system in the process, all the communities just starting engaged in the activity of water harvesting by their own. So after 2 and 3 months, clearly that area affected by drought. But from their previous experience, when drought comes, they leave that area. At that time, all the community wasn't just left, because they could just harvest waters and also just protect their cattle in those areas. It is so limited, 3 up to 5 Kabali areas, but the community is the center. So unless we engage the community, so in our policy recently, we have adopted one DRM policy in Ethiopian Red Cross, so clearly indicated that community-based disaster risk management is the major and key area we are going to just engage, and also it is included in our EAP, community-based disaster risk management. The community needs just to be included, and they have to the one who play the major role. We are not the one, we shouldn't have to be. We will just simply support them. They will go and work by their own just to cope the upcoming drought. So that is our approach, just to prevent.
Thank you so much, Abraham. And yeah, with this, I would also like to close. Thanks so much for your inputs, both Abraham and Mojaki. And we went quite over time with the questions, but I think it was nice to have you also, give you the chance and the audience the chance to interact or to get some questions and answers. So thanks a lot. We have 10 more minutes to have a bit of a joint discussion here now. I will stop the recording so that it's a bit more cozy, and yeah, but thanks everybody for joining up until now.